In this video, we're going to be given the graph of a function, and we're going to be asked to evaluate it at certain x values or y values. So here we have the graph of f, and it says evaluate if possible. So these two are pretty straightforward. Now, these other ones, you notice, have an inverse sign. And I will have students that will just completely ignore the inverse sign and go to evaluate them as they would these beginning ones. So, first of all, let's just look at these first two. This is the graph of f, and f is a function because it passes the vertical line test. So any vertical line I care to draw only intersects it at most once. See, it doesn't intersect it at all there. So it is a function. Now, when you have the graph of a function, if you have a point that's on the graph of the function, then what f does is it maps the x-coordinate into the y-coordinate. So if I want to find f evaluated at -1, then I look for the point whose x-coordinate is -1. And what f will do is it will map the x-coordinate into the y-coordinate, and the answer will be the y-coordinate. So let's find the point on the graph whose x-coordinate is -1. There it is. And that point has coordinates -1, 1. And so what f does is it maps -1 into 1. And so the answer, what's f evaluated at -1, is going to be the y-coordinate. Okay. And then let's go on to the next one, f evaluated at -4. Well, you have to find the point on the graph whose x-coordinate, so the number inside there is the x-coordinate, is -4. And what f will do is it will map the x-coordinate into the y-coordinate, and your answer will be the y-coordinate. So when I look at this graph, -1, -2, -3, -4, there's the point whose x-coordinate is -4. And its y-coordinate is -2. And so what f does is it maps the x-coordinate into the y-coordinate. So I'm going to, what f will do is it will map the x-coordinate into the y-coordinate, and so f evaluated at -4 is equal to -2. Let me write that in black. Okay, so that's what we do for these first two. But now when we get to the next questions, that's a completely different kettle of fish. All of those are f inverse. Now, first of all, is f inverse even defined? And f inverse is only going to be defined if our function is 1-to-1. Now, how do we tell if we have a 1-to-1 function? We do the horizontal line test. And if any horizontal line you can draw only intersects the graph at most once, then your function's 1-to-1, and that means it will have an inverse. So it is defined, f inverse is defined to talk about f having an inverse. Okay. So that's the first hurdle. Now the next hurdle is, I'm leaving this up here in blue. If you have a point on the graph of f, then when you want to find f inverse of a point, f inverse maps the y-coordinate into the x-coordinate. And so the number that you see inside here is actually the y-coordinate you're looking for. Okay, so let's look at this fellow. What is f inverse of -2? Well, I'm going to try and find the point on the graph whose y-coordinate is -2. And there's the point with a y-coordinate of -2. The coordinates of that point are that, and what F inverse does is it maps the y into the x. And so my answer is going to be F evaluated at -2 is equal to -4. F inverse evaluated at -2. All right, let's just keep doing them. All right, what about F inverse evaluated at 1? I'm going to look for the point on the graph whose y-coordinate is 1. So here's a y value of 1. There is the point. So that point has coordinates -1, 1. And what F inverse does is it maps the y-coordinate into the x-coordinate. And so F inverse of 1 is going to be the x-coordinate, which is -1. Okay, and let's do these last couple here. F inverse evaluated at 3. So I'm searching for the point whose y-coordinate is 3 if I'm doing F inverse. And this is the graph of F. So -1, -2. Oh, sorry. I'm looking for the point whose y-coordinate is +3. 1, 2, 3. There's the point. That point has y-coordinate 3. The coordinates of that point are 0, 3. And what F inverse does is it maps the y-coordinate into the x-coordinate. So F inverse of 3 is going to be whatever the x-coordinate is, and the answer is 0. My dogs are going psycho. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but we've got somebody coming over to look at the air conditioner. Okay, and the last one, we're going to try and find F inverse evaluated at -4. So if it's F inverse, and I've got the graph of F, this is the point that I want the y-coordinate to be -4. Now I look at this graph, and -1, -2, -3, -4. There is no point on this graph that has a y-coordinate of -4. So this does not exist because it's not defined. So there is no point on the graph with a y-coordinate of -4. There's not one. And so this is not defined. Okay, so I hope those were enough examples where you can have a better idea on how to evaluate graphs for an inverse. So we did all the things. We evaluated it for F, then we did the horizontal line test to make sure that the inverse existed, and then we did the proper way of evaluating for the inverse. So I hope this video helped you. And hit that subscribe button if it did, and I'll see you again on another video. Thanks a lot.